Hey everyone, and welcome back to this series where I analyze the Persona 3 characters under the lens of the tarot archetypes and the Fool's Journey. Since this is a multiple-part series, you may consider watching Part 1 and 2 if you haven't already, especially Part 1 if you want a better breakdown of the concepts like archetypes that stem from Carl Jung, but otherwise, let's jump right into Part 3 of the character analyses. The seventh archetype that the Fool encounters on his journey is the Chariot, and even if her social link with FEMC is listed under the Eon category, Aigis' character growth fits the Chariot archetype incredibly well. So first off, in brief words, the Chariot teaches the Fool the importance of developing emotional stability, self-confidence, and courage in order to take control of his own life in spite of change, or the fear of it. Now, on one hand, the upright Chariot represents a disciplined person who prevails through sheer willpower. This archetype displays great self-confidence and basically rushes forward to conquer her world. In a way, this archetype is similar to the Emperor since they both teach about strength and overcoming adversity. However, the Chariot focuses more on who is inspiring this personal drive, or in other words, who is driving the Chariot. When we first meet Aigis, we find out that she has escaped her confinement in the lab on her own, without any orders or permission from those who created her. The way she communicates and makes her wishes known are also shown in her assertions in multiple instances throughout the game, such as wanting to protect the MC or believing Roji to be dangerous. Also notice how the vast majority of her early actions and questions she brings up are ultimately made in an effort to prioritize her life's purpose of defeating shadows as an anti-shadow weapon. These things showcase her disciplined and rather methodological nature in which she prioritizes the efficiency of all activities, even recreation, for example. But the struggles that Aigis faces are also representative of the reverse Chariot. The negative aspects of this archetype, in large part, stems from allowing others to drive the chariot of our life, which results in a fear of losing our own self-control. Look at how Ikutsuki takes control of Aigis right from the get-go after her initial breakout from the labs in Yakushima. Adding on to this, her inner fight between her own desires and the fulfillment of pre-programmed missions are especially showcased when Ikutsuki takes direct control of her when he was trying to usher in the fall, and when she tries to fight Roji on the bridge in late November. Since the moment of her creation, Aigis was instilled with the purpose of existing as an anti-shadow weapon. Her foundational reason for living has always been in the hands of the Kirijo researchers, and the resulting goals they program into her.
A machine is created for a purpose. Mine is to defeat you. I exist for nothing else.
When it comes to Roji, yes. On one hand, Aigis does wish to fight him in order to protect SEES. But she still also fights him because she feels the need to fulfill an order that she failed in the past. So because of this, it's no surprise that she finds herself lost when she is unable to defeat him on her own. You see, this reflects the negative aspect of the Chariot that represents an instinctive fear of change, especially when faced with uncertainty after losing one's original purpose and sense of direction. Aigis' social link further expands on another aspect of the reverse Chariot that causes her to ignore her own feelings and goals. It's essentially steering the Chariot on a different path from one's true desires because of the belief that these things are unattainable or even shameful. But ultimately, in the end, Aigis accepts that defeating Roji on her own is outside of her control. She finds a new reason for living and is able to forge a path ahead based entirely on her own decisions, as is shown in her ultimate persona awakening and when confronting Nick's avatar. She also manages to get in touch with her true feelings and showcases the firm self-confidence of the Chariot archetype when she decides to reveal them to the MC, no matter the outcome. So, in conclusion, the Chariot teaches the Fool that change is inevitable and natural, and to pursue a new path forward that aligns with his own goals. Moving on, the next archetype that the Fool encounters is Strength. And in general, Strength teaches the Fool that mastery over his more base or animalistic natures can serve as an amazing source of power and guidance in his life. This may come as a surprise to many of you, but Koromaru serves as a very good example of the upright Strength tarot. So, first things first, obviously, Koromaru is a dog. He literally represents a more animalistic nature, and yet in the story, he is shown to be one of the wisest and healthiest members among SEES, both emotionally and psychologically. When we first encounter Koromaru, he had injured himself after defeating a rogue shadow that was trying to disturb the grave of his deceased master. Koromaru's intelligence and mastery over his animalistic tendencies is shown when Aigis translates that he protected the shrine because it's a sacred place. He didn't protect it out of blind emotion for his master or anger at the shadow, but rather had a thought-out reason, akin to human intelligence, as to why the place was worth protecting. Adding on an interesting note, while the reverse Strength tarot symbolizes the ferocity and aggression that reveals itself when we refuse to keep our lower natures in check, Koromaru consistently shows how he channels his animalistic nature into something productive without going out of control. A major aspect of the upright Strength is learning not to suppress our inner and base tendencies, since doing this can come back to bite us when we eventually end up losing control over them. Rather, we're meant to be aware of our more basic desires so that we can end up turning them into our strength. So, for example, what are the most basic qualities people think of when it comes to dogs? Oftentimes, the first thing that comes to mind is their loyalty. And Koromaru channels this most basic nature of loyalty into his strength to fight the shadows and protect all of SEES. Even the game elements reflect that Koromaru already fully encompasses the upright reading of his tarot. His persona Cerberus is the only persona of SEES that doesn't need to go through an ultimate awakening. The stats are already up to par with the final persona forms of all the other characters. Plus, there are little instances throughout the story that drive home this idea that Koromaru is already a very healthy individual who knows how to use his basic nature for good. When he is told that he can't do certain things, like go to school with the others, he doesn't lash out or grow overly aggressive with them. He also knows when some of the best abilities of being a dog are needed, like when he comforts Ken, and he can turn on that switch to become the stalwart and loyal defender of SEES when it's necessary. Just when I thought they completely forgot about Koromaru in the scene with Ikutsuki on top of Tartarus, good old Fido jumps in for the big save. All these things really show how Koromaru is really man's best friend. So, in conclusion, the Strength Tarot teaches the Fool the value of refining his most basic desires and tendencies to channel those impulses into the strength that will guide him along his life's journey. And so we arrive at the final archetype in this video, and the 9th overall that the Fool encounters, which is the Hermit, or Jin Shirato in P3's instance. Unlike Chidori, whom I will cover in the next video, Jin and Takaya basically never stray from the reverse of their respective tarot. The Hermit is supposed to teach the Fool about taking time to find solitary rest and to reflect on his journey so far. But, of course, we see mostly the opposite of all these things in Jin. First off, the upright Hermit uses solitary opportunities to develop his wisdom and skills. Jin is the stereotypical smart guy on the enemy side. He fulfills the role of the upright hermit to a certain extent, since his skill with technology, computers, and the internet are all rather solitary activities. And he provides much of the wisdom for Takaya when he gets worked up. But it's also interesting to note that Jin is the only one of the 3 Strega members who we never see on his own, besides during our final battle with him in Tartarus. The upright hermit also understands the importance of sharing what he has learned in solitude to benefit others, since complete isolation isn't healthy. So, going off of this, notice how there is a part of Takaya that truly believes he's helping people through the promise of Nyx's salvation. On the other hand though, Jin shows no instances of thinking of the larger group in mind. Even though he amasses plenty of followers on his internet accounts while growing the cult, we get no indication that he actually cares about any of these people. He's just doing these things to help Takaya become the true hero for enlightening the world about Nyx. Now, of course, we know that Takaya's main motto is to live for the moment, which just happens to be completely opposite of a major aspect of the Hermit archetype. You see, the Hermit is supposed to gain wisdom through self-reflection, but Jin never takes a moment to take a good hard look at himself and his past honestly. Everything he does is focused on the present and how he can help Takaya achieve his wishes because he saved him in the past. Jin doesn't reflect on his past with Kirijo, even saying that he doesn't care about them anymore in our final confrontation. He doesn't reflect on how he could potentially have lived a different life away from Takaya and Strega, even if it was only for a little while, like Chidori was able to experience with Junpei in the hospital. I think we can even argue that the first time Jin seriously reflects on anything in the past is when he is recounting the Kirijo experiments to SEES after his defeat. You see, the Hermit Tarot often symbolizes that it's time to examine our lives and to rethink our current life choices. That we need to enter a period of inner reflection, away from our current demands in life. So, the reverse of this often indicates that one is exceeding the limitations of what they can currently do, and that they need to take a step back. And what happens with Jin? None of these things. He furthers the cult of Nyx, tries to fight us on his own, and ultimately fails miserably. The irony is that he claims that Takaya has shown him what freedom is, but Takaya's very motto and influence ultimately stifled any growth for Jin in the end. He was loyal only to Takaya, and the final nail in the coffin is that Takaya never even achieved his final wish. So clearly, I think the Yamse learns the shortcomings of the Hermit Tarot from Jin. And in conclusion, the Hermit teaches the Fool that it is time to seek some solitary rest to draw on our inner wisdom and evaluate if our current path is truly healthy, or that it may be time to make a change. And with that, thanks so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please like, comment, and consider subscribing for the next part in this series. I will be covering Takaya the Fortune Tarot, Ken the Justice, and Chidori the Hanged Man next. So until next time, take care. See ya!